Sounds good.
What is up? This is the War Dog. Welcome to Comic Book Theater with my main man, JR. What's going on, JR?
What's up, War Dog?
JR got a little different beard going on there today. He's looking a little bit like Arn Anderson, the old wrestler. So, I mean, I should take my hat off and do the whole Ric Flair thing maybe, but
woo! Styling and profiling, man. Hey, as long as Daniel Tosh doesn't get on me and do that kind of stuff, we're cool, man. I'll be all right.
Yeah, it's just a little cold here, so I gotta wear the knit cap.
Yeah.
So today we're gonna talk about Black Adam because there's some news about Black Adam and The Rock playing Black Adam, and then of course Mandalorian #3 came out, and Star Wars has just been on fire lately. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. Sorry. So John, why don't you go into the Black Adam thing, and I'll just shut up for a second.
No, you're cool, man. So what's been in the news, it's been all over the place, along with like the Mandalorian, is Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, has confirmed that we've seen artist renditions of him as Black Adam, but it does look like the JSA will be involved in the Black Adam movie, which, for those of you who don't know, the JSA was the golden age precursor to the Justice League of America. It's the Justice Society of America is what the JSA, a golden age team, which kind of, like I say, is kind of that precursor to. And so, you're going to have people like Wonder Woman and Batman and Superman there. And all of this started back in All-Star Comics. It's very neat, though, side note, with the All-Star Comics line. So just kind of, and I was talking to War Dog about this a little bit beforehand. If you're not aware, there's the Golden Age rendition of the JSA. Then there is the Bronze Age rendition of the JSA. And they skipped the Silver Age completely. And what happened is issue number 57 happens in 51. Oh, I have a cat sighting there. Hi, kitty cat. Anyway, so it happens in 51, and the entire JSA is laid out like cliffhanger style. Nobody knows what's happening, but the readership had dwindled enough. DC just cut it completely.
Now you said 51. So, was it 57?
I'm sorry, 57.
Okay,
I apologize. 57 cuts it completely. No warning, just done. Cliffhanger. So they let it set for like almost 25 years. And then in 1975, number 58 comes out. That's first appearance of Power Girl. And, they've got a nice cover going. And they literally pick up exactly where they left off in 51, which to me is kind of hilarious, actually. I like the idea of them doing that, but instead of going to volume 2, instead of going into any of this stuff where they try and reboot it, they just add these people in to come save the day and continue on the story like nothing ever skipped a beat.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean that's almost like Star Wars or any of our other our movie franchises that go away for a little while, and then all of a sudden, boom, they come back.
Yeah, well, and with that, I mean, that's one of those nifty little just idiosyncrasies of the comic book industry at the time. They didn't think anything of dropping it without warning and then picking it back up without warning again, just kind of an oddball thing. It didn't happen a lot, but it happened with that one. And, so we're kind of switching back to the Black Adam movie itself. The unfortunate part is and the part that I will admit I'm upset about is it doesn't look like Power Girl is going to be involved there at all. It does sound like they are going to put in various characters. From Hawkman is one. I think we talked about Dr. Fate might be another one that comes in with. But in other words, they're mixing and matching their JSA. It's not going to be the Golden Age team or the Bronze Age team. It's going to be a hodgepodge of whatever they feel they can get away with.
Yeah, well, I mean, you said that, like, I mean, the movies are kind of like an alternate universe. So, I mean, I guess this would kind of be like an alternate universe. And, I mean, we both know why Power Girl's not going to be in this, because her outfit's too sexy. I mean, nobody wants to see a sexy woman on screen that's powerful and beautiful. It's just, it doesn't fit into our day and age. I mean,
It, it, you have a point there for sure. Her version of feminism doesn't fit today's mold of feminism. Um, and yeah, we've talked about it. It's definitely something where you have to you look back, and the way that she was written was being proud of that feminism and kind of flaunting it really originally. And yes, different writers have morphed her in this way or that. She's had different she has had multiple versions of her costume, but the one that almost is universally hated is the one that makes her very just plain, and they put a P on her chest where the window normally is, or where, and in the past she's also not had a window at all, just brought up higher. There are a lot of different variations there, but the early '90s version is probably the most universally hated, and truthfully, you and I both know chances are really high that would be the uniform they would have to go with because it covers her completely.
yeah, you know, I like the white suit. I think that was probably the best costume. And you know, is there an actress that you could imagine that would play that part like perfectly? I mean, because she's like a blonde, big-chested woman. I mean,
A blonde bombshell.
pretty much.
I mean, you know, you can go through the ages and say, you know, like Marilyn Monroe would have been spectacular as Power Girl. Probably in the '90s, they would have definitely went with somebody like Pamela Anderson. Almost certainly. Look, I kind of feel as though it'd have to be a full-figured lady
Yeah,
for
definitely.
sure. And that's not very in vogue right now. Hey, looks like we have a guest showing up. Todd?
Yes, we do. He's What's going on, Taylor? We're just talking a little JSA here. Um, how's it going?
Hey, what's up?
So we were talking about Power Girl, and we were trying to figure out who today could play Power Girl in a series. You know, because I mean, Power Girl's kind of a chesty. I don't know if that's an appropriate word, but
A voluptuous.
voluptuous, yes,
She's
voluptuous
got
blonde.
curves.
Huh. Power Girl. Oh, man.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, while you think about that, you know, and we can get back to that, but I mean, so you know, Black Adam's coming out, and The Rock is playing Black Adam. From what I understand, is this definitely happening? Or I mean,
100% on 100% on Dwayne The Rock Johnson playing Black Adam. he's the one that's been confirming that recently. And he's also the one he's the one that said that the JSA. I'll just read what's here from Cinema Blend. We're also introducing JSA in Black Adam. So in JSA, maybe there's a role. They have an animal pet. Now, mind you, that was in regards to the rumor that Kevin Hart wanted to be included in the Black Adam movie, and he said the way the article reads, Kevin Hart said he wanted to be Black Adam's sidekick. Black Adam doesn't have a sidekick. Virtually everybody in the comics universe knows Black Adam does not have a sidekick.
Is Black Adam immortal? Is he like an immortal character though? I mean, where like you could have a sidekick. You could possibly, but this is the deal: is Black Adam is either a villain or an anti-hero. Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
So, and the only anti-hero that I know of that has a sidekick is Batman, and that's because he's got the no killing policy.
Well, you know, I love Kevin Hart. He's one of my favorite actors, and him and Rock and Jumanji were amazing. I didn't expect much from that movie, but I really enjoyed it. It's just I'm a little bit concerned about Rock playing Black Adam. I want this to be like a really cool character, and so I don't want it to be like Arnold Schwarzenegger playing Mr. Freeze, right? I want Black Adam to be really cool. I think The Rock can pull this off. And so I think Kevin Hart would actually be maybe a negative to The Rock playing Black Adam. Well, I mean, what do you guys think? I mean,
I'd love to see Kevin Hart in some kind of any like comic book movie adaptation, just because I think that his demeanor and stuff, he brings a certain spin to things that it would be obviously humor like we've seen, but it would be like different because it's Kevin Hart's kind of humor instead of whatever normal. So I mean, I think it could be really cool to have him show up in Black Adam.
Right.
I'm not too familiar with the actual character of Black Adam. I haven't read a lot of the Shazam comics or anything, but if they can find a way, it'd be cool.
Well, like you say, I'm not opposed to him necessarily being in the movie at some point. I personally would like to. I'd rather see it be a cameo, where maybe even he's playing himself, and somehow the fight spills over into a Kevin Hart stage show monologue kind of thing, and you get a flash reaction. Kind of like a Stan Lee cameo almost, but not necessarily really. And I'm kind of with Todd on this in one way, and that is that you have to be very careful whenever you cast very famous actors in parts like this. Look at Nick Cage in Ghost Rider. Nick Cage being Nick Cage as Ghost Rider. That's how you don't see Johnny Blaze. You see freaking Nick Cage, okay?
Yeah.
And I'm really not dogging Nick Cage. I'm just saying that's what it is. And the same thing for what you said with Arnold Schwarzenegger playing Dr. Freeze, Mr. Freeze, thank you. It's the same way. You see that in a couple of different ways with like Ben Affleck as Batman. How many of us really saw him as Bruce Wayne instead of Ben Affleck, the guy from Dazed and Confused? You know what I mean?
I don't know. I thought he carried Batman pretty well. You know, but I mean, I think on this, you know, I think The Rock can carry it. I think he's just The Rock has always been comedic, and so I would expect this to be a little bit more of a serious role. And probably more like those mummy films that he was in, you know, and that's what I'd like to see.
I think he can do serious. I really do believe that he can do serious. I think he can do intimidating. Um, yes, you're right. There's almost always a little bit of levity to his acting. There's always something that breaks up that intensity. Um, I'm kind of with you too that maybe this would be one of those roles I would rather just see him be a straight killer instead. But there again, this may be an indication that DC is trying to mimic the Marvel cinematic universe and have a little bit of levity in all of their movies too. I I'm definitely one of those guys. I've said before. I reserve judgment until I see the product.
No, no. I mean, in this movie, I mean, who do the JSA? I mean, JSA fights Black Adam. I mean, that's where I'm a little confused. I mean, so Black Adam, he's kind of like a bad guy, anti-hero, but this is his movie, and then the JSA is going to come in and try to defeat him.
Well, and see, just like that, they're so early in stages with this. There's no real clear outline on how that's going to work, to my knowledge. Are they going to be somewhere where they're trying to recruit him to be in the JSA and then he has a change of heart and becomes the anti-hero after kind of being a bad guy or not? I don't know. Taylor, have you heard anything on this subject as far as that goes, other than the casting of Dwayne Johnson?
Um, I knew that Dwayne Johnson was cast. I heard the release date, and then Todd had sent me an article that was about like they said that there might be the JSA showing up at some point. I don't know. I don't know quite. I think like you said, kind of too early to tell if it's going to be one of those things where they're going to have an actual role throughout the film, or if it's going to be like a little small bit part, or what's going to happen. I mean, heck, it could even end up being like a situation kind of like in the Deadpool movie where it's like, oh, here's the JSA. Oh, there goes the JSA. So
Well, I mean, DC had success with the Joker movie, which
yeah,
is he was a villain. So I mean, maybe if they're thinking from that perspective, maybe they do an origin story of Black Adam, right? And they tell a story kind of like the Joker movie, and then maybe the JSA is in it, and then the next movie that comes in line is Shazam #2.
Well, eventually they have to go there. They have to do Shazam versus Black Adam. It's in that same way that you can't have Venom and not have Spider-Man eventually. That
right.
has to happen eventually, or the fans will go nuts. The same way with Shazam and Black Adam. Now, I also believe that ISIS is showing up in this movie as well. That's something else that I had heard. So you kind of, let's be real here. The ISIS first appearance in that Shazam run was a mid-range key, not a huge high dollar key like that Black Adam was from that Shazam run, his first Bronze Age appearance. Um, so the other thing too is honestly, just talking a little bit of spec here for everybody. Honestly, if you can pick up Shazam #1 in a good grade right now, now's the time to do it, because when Black Adam and Shazam finally meet up with Dwayne Johnson in that movie, guaranteeing you that's when that book will go through the roof. The book Shazam #1 was kind of disappointing after the Shazam movie. It didn't move up the way that I expected it to. So it's actually kind of back depressed a little bit. I think your next best bet. Now, you don't have to pick it up right now today, but the prices are down. They're not up. That's for sure. Nobody's thinking about Shazam #1.
What's the cost in Shazam #1?
I was that's a good question. I did not do my research on, but I
Come
know
on, man.
I can look it up here real quick. Give me just a second
Is
here.
Shazam number one? I mean, what's the significance of Shazam number one? Is that the first appearance of Black Adam?
No, Shazam number one is the first DC printed actual Shazam appearance. And so, like, if you want to go back to the Wiz comic books and stuff like that, you're going to be in the thousands of dollars pretty easily.
That was the Captain Marvel run, right?
Yeah. And so, like a 9.6.
Well, I don't need a 9.6, John.
Well, hey, dude, a 9.6
2.5.
well, a 9.6 is $155.
Oh, okay. No, that ain't bad. Yeah.
For a book from 73 with the potential that, like I say, if they can make Shazam 2 the right way with Black Adam and Dwayne Johnson playing Black Adam, you're pretty assured that I would be shocked if that price didn't double at that point. But for whatever reason, this first Shazam movie, while everybody I know of that saw it liked it, it just didn't translate to book sales. For whatever reason, it did not translate to book sales. I really don't know why. If somebody has a theory on why, I am all ears.
You know, I think it's probably just because, I mean, is it really a key? I mean, because then you go back to the Wiz comics, like you said. It's yes, it is a number one, and we live in the days where we realize that, you know, comic book companies just make number ones to try to sell more of them to us.
Right.
So I mean, when you look at that, it's like, oh, that's just another number one. I mean,
well, I mean, look, okay, so just for instance, the real first appearance of Black Adam, and by the way, guys, it's not that I know all this stuff. I'm using Key Collector's app on my phone. Turn the brightness down next time I do that so that people can actually see I'm using Key Collector.
How could you be using the Key Collector app? Oh my God, the Key Collector app is so big.
Oh, I know. CC free for your free 1 week trial. That's the Collector's Corner code. Anyway, Marvel Family 1 is the actual first appearance, and that's from the 40s. Okay, that's Golden Age.
Wow.
1945. A low grade of that book is going to run you about $2,000.
Damn.
Okay?
Yeah.
You want it in high grade, $7,000. So you go to the next best thing, which is his first appearance. Not since the Golden Age, is Shazam 28. That book right there. We're all relatively familiar because it's got that kind of iconic cover to it as well. You know, you're looking at in a low grade, you can get it in the $30, $45 range. If you want a really high grade, $250 for that book, for a high grade book. So, you know, it's kind of one of those where investors and speculators are trying to figure out where the money is to be made. That's where I say that Shazam run, there's money to be made there with that. And, you know, I was talking a little bit about Isis too. She's going to be showing up. First appearance of Isis is in that same run. It's not number 28, it's number 25. And that one is super undervalued, guys. $45 for a high grade. $45. If she comes in, if they cast her right and make a good movie here, she could be the breakout star of the whole shooting match. And at $45 for a high grade, that could be where the actual money is ready to be made. And that's my opinion. That I got nothing to back that up other than me speculating that if they cast her right and if they make a compelling story, she could be the breakout star.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it just takes us back to the whole Power Girl argument. I mean, that could have been the breakout star. Now, Stargirl is supposed to be in this one. I heard. Now, I don't know too much about Stargirl.
So with Stargirl, there's actually more of a rumor that they are doing a CW show with Stargirl.
Oh yeah, I heard that too.
Okay, so that's where I'm saying on that one is probably more likely is that I just be honest with you guys, I have not kept up with this season of the Flash of the Arrow or any of those things yet. I will be doing a marathon to get caught up before they do the crossover bit that they always do right here around Thanksgiving time between and Christmas. And it's Crisis on Infinite Earths, which I'm super pumped about. That's where I originally was hoping that the JSA would show up and they would do some things with the JSA, and that maybe Power Girl would eventually show up because of Supergirl. Some of this stuff. There seemed to me to be a lot more direct tie-in that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think so, and I think that would have probably been a more appropriate than doing it with this Black Adam film, just because the JSA isn't as well known. I think they should probably probably go with a little bit more well known. But I mean, because The Rock is playing Black Adam, I have to imagine, they're just going off of having The Rock, and they assume, with having The Rock, you can do whatever you want, basically.
He is the highest paid actor in Hollywood for a reason.
Yeah, he's awesome.
All of his films make money.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something to be said for that. He puts rears in seats. I don't really know who else they could have play Black Adam though. Do you guys have any? I know the casting is already set. Can you think of any other actors in Hollywood that could play Black Adam?
Honestly, I mean, I've seen so much of The Rock that I've just bought into it. I'm good with it.
Yeah, Taylor, I mean, I think The Rock's a good choice for it.
I mean, Vin Diesel is doing the Bloodshot movie. I think at one point I might have been able to see him do it just because of body type and that type of thing. But other than those two guys, I can't really think of anybody either, really, that would be a good fit there.
Yeah, the only other person I can think of is
maybe
Robert.
What was that, Todd?
Oh, the only other person I can think of is Robert Pattinson, but he's playing Batman, so I don't want to screw that up.
You're just dead set on. Hey, look, that cast, talk about an all-star ensemble. You guys have seen the cast announcements on that. They're bringing in the who's who of character actors to play everybody from Penguin to Carmine Falcone, just everyone. I mean, if they're not careful, they're gonna be bringing in Adam Sandler next, for crying out loud.
Yeah. How many? Hopefully, they don't overdo it with characters. I mean, that was a problem with the one with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jim Carrey and Tommy Lee Jones or whatever. I mean, there was just too many. I like to see a villain be developed a little bit more.
Well, okay. So last time I heard, and it looks like we're kind of transitioning over here to the Batman stuff. Um, the last I heard, they were going based off of the Long Halloween, which is a 13-part series from the mid '90s for Batman. And if they find a way to adapt it well, there are going to be minor cameos by a lot of the Batman villains, but they're just going to be cameos.
Okay.
Short little this guy, but I ain't gonna lie to you. If they find a way to develop it the right way and write it the right way for that movie, they could introduce that entire, not the entire, but the majority of the main rogues gallery there. And I think that would be a really good idea, especially if they believe this Robert Pattinson guy is the guy to carry the franchise. Are either one of you guys familiar with the Long Halloween?
No, I don't. I don't know anything about it. You know, I mean, and Taylor, you know anything about it?
No, that's one of the Batman ones I haven't gotten into yet.
So 13 part. I mean, I don't really even think that they consider it canon. It wasn't an Elseworld, but they don't consider it canon either. Essentially, the that's part of the reason why they were talking about Calendar Man being somebody that might play a role in the movie whenever they were doing some of their casting meets. Calendar Man plays a significant role, but it is not the actual bad guy. I really don't want to spoil it. What I'll say is if you don't want to pick up the trade paperback or try and find the 13 copies on YouTube, type in Batman Long Halloween, and there is a great narrated story of Batman the Long Halloween that you can listen to. I think it took me about 2 hours to listen to the whole thing from beginning to end, which is not terrible. It was well read and stuff, and with some dramatization, and you can get an idea of who the big bad guy is. But I'm not gonna spoil who the big bad guy is.
Yeah, you know, I just see Matthew McConaughey would potentially be Two-Face, and I was kind of excited about that. I actually dig most of Matthew McConaughey's stuff. I think he'd be an interesting Two-Face. I'd like to see Two-Face actually as a primary character. Like he's always been the secondary bad guy. And I mean, I think with a guy like Matthew McConaughey, you could actually get a really good performance.
I can see that. I can see that. I don't really know that Two-Face has been done real well. Even in the Dark Knight trilogy, I'm not sure it was done right.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Go ahead, Taylor. You got an opinion for us on either who might play Two-Face that you would like, or how they've done Two-Face in the past?
Well, they've done it in the past. I mean, neither of the ones that they did in the movies, I wasn't too much of a fan of either of them. I felt like with all the other incredible stuff in the Dark Knight trilogy, he was kind of didn't have as much of a role, and with all the time they spent building up to him, it was a little disappointing. But personally, I'm not sure. I can't think of a name right now off the top of my head, but I'd really just be happy if they at least got an actor who had like a really good on-off switch for that. Sometimes I'm a normal, sane demeanor, and I can be crazy, you know. Just be able to flip that switch to kind of show. Because I haven't read too many Two-Face comics, but to me, as a character, he seems like a good part of a story for him could be like this struggle between this half of me wants order and this half of me wants chaos, or whatever dynamic, you know.
Yeah, that's a good point. That you have that kind of fate or chance that you're either gonna you have the outcome you want or the outcome you don't want. It's all based on the flip of the coin. Kind of chaos, like you say. Sometimes chaos even is order for a certain amount of time before it develops back into chaos. Really,
Yeah.
um, it it's one of those things where yeah, you know, you're right. It does need to have kind of an on-off switch there. Um, Man, I can't think of a better actor than McConaughey for it. If he's willing to do it, he may not. Todd, were you saying that you had heard that they had cast him, or were just interested in casting him?
No, it's probably rumors. But,
I think he was in talks with the company or something, working on some sort of negotiation is what I'd read.
Okay, yeah. See, I mean, I just seen some articles that said he was possible, and then I seen some pictures of him as a possible Two-Face. I agree. I mean, I think he would be a really cool. I think Matthew McConaughey usually plays characters pretty well. I mean, I've seen movies like Lincoln Lawyer and stuff that I never thought that I would care about, and all of a sudden, he plays a part like spectacular. I know that they have Catwoman already. Like, it's they have a Catwoman. I can't think of who. It's Lenny Kravitz's daughter, Zoe Kravitz, right? I think
Yes.
that's their
Yeah.
Catwoman. And then who else was the main villain? I mean,
Well, okay, so I was trying not to spoil it.
yeah,
If they
spoil it,
go,
man. We're
if they go,
spoiling
okay,
it.
okay. If they go with the long Halloween, Two Face is insinuated to be the main villain. And if you read it the right way, if you read into it the right way, the way I did, it actually ends up being Two Face's wife is the actual main villain. The actual main villain. And it's an interesting twist turn because the long Halloween goes out, I think, over a year, and it is based on and the reason Calendar Man is, and I keep calling him Calendar Man, that may not be his actual.
I think that is his name, and I mean, I
Is it?
assume Calendar Man. The whole reason it's the long Halloween is, Calendar Man is concerned about Halloween and the date of it.
Well, he based the basics for his crime and character is all these holidays. Maybe they called him Holiday instead in there. I'm not sure. That, you know what it was? It was that they thought Calendar Man had a copycat called Holiday. That's what it was, and I'm remembering it a little bit better now. And Batman approached Calendar Man for assistance in trying to profile who they were terming Holiday. And like I say, it through twists and turns, it it's found out that it's Two Face, but not actually Two Face. It's his wife. And like you say, there's some good twists and turns in there. It's definitely worth a listen on YouTube or a read for sure. But yeah, it's Calendar Man is who, and it's really neat because Calendar Man basically plays Hannibal Lecter from Silence of the Lambs on Batman, which to me is kind of interesting. That Mr. Prep Time, Mr. I know everybody's weakness, I've got a profile for everybody, has to seek help from one of his criminals, one of his rogues galleries for help in this story, which is a little un-Batman like in my opinion. which is probably why I like the story, honestly.
Now, did Penguin play a role in the Long Halloween? Because I remember reading something about they were wanting to cast Penguin.
Well, and that's what I'm saying is this would be a really good way. The Long Halloween would be a really good way to introduce a vast array of the Rogues Gallery
Yeah.
in cameo form. Because basically, at the very beginning, Batman just thinks he's got a lunatic on his hands. Then it starts to develop some patterns. Like I say, it goes out over a year. And so during that year that Batman is not finding or figuring out who this is actually, you see him make the usual rounds with the usual suspects, inquiring about who this killer could be, who this holiday killer could be, and or what their motives would be. And like you say, it's interesting because, like you say, he goes and he hits everybody up, but Calendar Man is the one that's the most helpful. So he would get a lot of screen time. Likely Two-Face would get quite a bit of screen time as well. And then that flip twist ending, either that or they'll completely bastardize the entire story and make it where Two-Face is the actual baddie or that Calendar Man is the actual baddie. They'll go one of those two routes, most likely. Just so it appeals to the masses a little better.
So are you thinking like Penguin's going to be more of a just kind of in that sequence of
a quick cameo is my guess. A quick cameo is my guess. Really, there.
Well, isn't
Okay.
Colin Farrell supposed to be Penguin?
Well, but I mean, dude, if they're setting up, think about this. If they're setting up for future films in the franchise, what's the problem with having a quick cameo to set it up? And then no, hey, you may not be in Batman 2 or 3, but you'll definitely be in number 4. But you'll have cameos in 1, 2, and 3 to build to number 4 for the Penguin. There's no harm in that. I mean, look at the way they did it with Josh Brolin and Thanos. That formula can work if you have small cameos or in-credit scenes, etc. There's lots of ways that you can build that mythos in if you're doing multiple movies. And I'm not
one
saying,
thing.
Go ahead.
Oh, one thing that I've kind of thought of on my own as an idea. I think it was actually I got inspired by it when I was reading the New 52 Justice League, where they had those couple pages at the end building up the Shazam story alongside. I kind of was thinking, and like that could be something cool for Marvel or DC or whoever, have like main event, and then at the end of the credits or whatever, do like a little 5-minute short, and they end up being all these little tie together stories to build up to whatever. And I think there's going to be other things like that, kind of companies trying to find unique ways to have these interwoven fabrics, because the whole idea of these connected universes is kind of the big thing in Hollywood right now. So I've got a feeling that hopefully someone will come up with something cool.
You know, I would be totally fine with that. Either that, or instead of running one of the advertisements before the movie, like you say, do a 5-minute short that just a quick hitter of more of a street level hero that they want to bring into the universe, or backstory for a future crossover movie. I'd be okay with that, and it would be something slightly different than what Marvel did with the post-credit scenes. Because those post-credit scenes, man, they're bam, bam, they're done. 2-3 minutes tops, and they're done. Have more of a just short, concise story may not be a bad idea.
Well, you know, I mean, is Robert Pattinson going to play Batman for more than 3 films? You know, I mean, that's like with the whole Marvel philosophy. You had Chris Evans play Captain America through like 7 films. I mean, you
Yeah.
really need, I mean, to do that. I mean, what Marvel did was actually a pretty spectacular accomplishment to be able to keep these actors and keep them interested and keeping them wanting to do it. I mean, is that even possible? I mean, is that possible with DC? I don't know, you know. And then you've got the, you know, you've got the perfect Wonder Woman. Would you want to get rid of the perfect Wonder Woman to start a new Wonder Woman? I mean, then you start ending up being like the X-Men films, right? Where like you're constantly changing your characters. So I mean, you know, the Marvel philosophy is amazing. I don't know if that could be replicated. I mean, you know, like Robert Downey Jr., Chris Hemsworth, Chris Evans, those guys were dedicated. I mean, they really stuck in. John, you're muted, man.
I'm sorry, I had a quick
You had a
Todd
Todd
moment
moment.
there for it. Yeah. So what I was to say is Marvel got terribly fortunate with their casting. Very fortunate. People who were either people who needed a bit of a rejuvenation in their career or were up and comers. People that may not have been known as other, you know, as other characters or actors from other movies until they got to Marvel. And now you can't really see them without associating them with their Marvel characters. And that's something special. I'm with you. I'm not sure it can be replicated, but I think DC would be silly not to at least try.
Yeah. It's just it's unfortunate. Like I said, they found the perfect Wonder Woman. I like having Henry Cavill as Superman. You know, I mean, casting Ben Affleck as Batman might have been a mistake because what's his face as Aquaman is awesome as well. I mean, they really do have like an awesome Justice League. It just sucks that like Ben Affleck is bailing out on it. And
Yeah, no, man, I'm with you. The continuity aspect definitely is something you have to consider with going to a new Batman and not changing all the other actors too. But I think they might be able to get away with it. Might either that or they go with the Batman Beyond model. They kind of just chalk it up that it's Batman Beyond now instead of regular Batman. That would be a possibility too.
well, you said it's kind of like an alternate reality. So maybe Ben Affleck retires as Batman and somebody else takes over as Batman. Bruce Payne.
Bruce Payne.
You know, I mean, so I think we've talked the subject to death. You know, so the Mandalorian #3 came out, and in this episode, the Mandalorian #3. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put you to sleep.
No, it's okay.
But the Mandalorian has his bounty, which is Baby Yoda. He turns his bounty in, gets paid, then feels bad about it, goes back and rescues Baby Yoda, and then at the end he fights, and the other Mandalorians jump in and save him. I thought it was great. I thought it was a good episode. I really enjoyed it. I like the fact that they're telling a story. I do feel like the 35 minutes kind of feels a little bit light. Like it's almost like you could put it all together and you could have this like long 3-hour movie. So I kind of feel like maybe I should have got Disney Plus in December and watched it, but I know everybody would have been talking about The Mandalorian and I would have been excited. How do you guys feel about the Mandalorian episode 3? I mean, I'll start with Taylor on this one. Did you see the Mandalorian episode 3 yet?
Yeah, it was real good. I thought that they did a really good job, I think, of kind of tying in the stuff they've been setting up these first couple episodes to get them ready for the next part of whatever's going to happen. This episode had some really cool scenes action-wise where he's like, you know, coming through and taking out all of these stormtroopers, and then that big fight scene at the end was really cool too. I'm trying. I had like 4 or 5 things that I was thinking of. I'm blanking on all of them right now.
It's all good. Let's go
so
to.
I might just jump in.
Let's go to John, because John has a negative perspective on this one, and you might want to jump in on it after he talks.
And this is the deal. I know for a change, I'm going to be the one with the controversial opinion here, the non-popular opinion.
For a change, what are you talking about?
This episode of The Mandalorian was completely predictable. The only thing that was in question was, how was he going to keep Baby Yoda? What was the Empire? Were they going to screw him on the exchange, or was he going to have a change of heart? That was the only thing that was in question. Now the Mandalorians coming through and fighting with him at the end, that was kind of cool. I'll tell you, it felt like, and I know last week we talked about Star Wars just being an intergalactic version of Jerry Springer because of all of the deadbeat dads. This week, The Mandalorian felt like intergalactic John Wick. That's what it felt like. It felt like he just wandered through and was killing a bunch of people and had, the whistling birds that took care of people. That's super duper convenient. They just happened to have those made for him that episode, and then was able to use them that episode. I mean, look, I want for The Mandalorian to be cool, and it is cool in ways, but the story was super predictable this week. That's my opinion. It was super predictable. Now, the ways that it was cool, I still really enjoy that the 2 main characters barely talk. I actually enjoy that. I think that is something that's different and enjoyable because, of course, Baby Yoda doesn't say anything, and the Mandalorian is a man of few words. He has that Clint Eastwood about him, that he's there to take care of business. You know what I mean? So in that way, I dig it. But I'm hoping they find something better next week than this week I felt was predictable. So there's my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he turned over Baby Yoda. You know that they're not going to dump Baby Yoda at this point. So, I mean, yes, I agree. It's definitely predictable. We did talk earlier about how I like the fact that he traded Baby Yoda, got the money, got the payment, got some new armor, and then decided to go back and rescue Baby Yoda. So he actually scammed them. And then at the end, I mean, I did like the fact that the other Mandalorians came in and rescued him. I thought that was really cool. I think where the predictability comes in, I because these are 35-minute episodes, I think that kind of poses a little bit of a problem with predictability. Like if this was a movie and it was constantly running, I think the predictability, well, it would probably still be there, but it would be a little bit smoother.
Yeah, I think that this show is probably going to end up being one of the ones that watch it on like a binge once it's done. Just because they kind of, every episode so far has seemed to pick up right from where they left off. But for I guess, so Todd, the thing you were talking about where he kind of like scammed them a little bit.
Yeah.
I thought that they did a pretty good job of showing how, he did his bounty, he got his reward. But then, like they showed in the earlier episode where he got the one piece of his armor done, as the blacksmith woman is working, he's like flashing back to when he was a kid and the things that happened that turned him into an orphan foundling that ended up getting brought into the Mandalorian culture. And I think as that was happening, he was thinking about how he had told them, oh, it was an enemy that killed the thing, but it didn't know it was my enemy or whatever. And he realized that this baby Yoda, he still had that conscience because he kind of felt like he had been through a similar thing where you're alone, you don't have your parents, and maybe he had gone through something before he joined the Mandalorians where he had somebody from a group that did some kind of experiments or whatever, or anything really. I don't know. They could expand on that a little more, I think.
You know what?
It felt to me that as he was...
Go ahead, man.
Yeah, no, I was just kind of trying to finish my train of thought. So it felt like as he was getting the armor built and remembering those things is what really, it was almost like a guilty conscience like ringing in his head too,
Yeah, and that's a good point. I mean, when he was a kid, they opened those doors and there's like a droid that looked like a droid from the prequels.
Yeah.
And I mean, so that was actually a moment where I actually rewound and watched it again because I was, is that a droid from the prequels? I mean, and that was one of the things that I noticed.
Yeah. And then I guess to the point that, oh my God.
The predictability aspect of it?
So yeah, the predictability aspect, that was, it felt to me like there were certain things that as it was happening, it's like, okay, this is only going to go one of two ways. Or this is probably setting up for the next thing later in the episode that, but one of the callbacks that I'm not sure that if they meant to show this or not, but both the shots were in the episode. So I wanted to talk about it a little, where when he first gets his original reward and then he goes back to the guy that gives him his cases, he showed him, oh, look, I got a block of that metal too in this pocket. And then at the end of the episode, when he's fighting and that guy's on the ship, and then he shoots him right in that pocket. So I think that the Mandalorian might have been trying to let that guy live on purpose. Because if you remember, like when they were in the bar and stuff, everyone else was giving him the stink eye and kind of treating him like crap the whole time. But then this guy, even if it was just because he was making him money as a bounty hunter, he was still at least a decent person to him.
Yeah, I can see that. And that was something that I kind of questioned too, is if he's such an accurate shot and he knew beforehand that steel was there, which that steel is blaster resistant and lightsaber resistant. That's one of the reasons why it's so valuable. And so yes, I believe that he did shoot him there intentionally to spare his life. Of course, we all know that will come back to bite him in the rear end. At some point later, he will show up and say something to the effect of, "You should have killed me when you had the chance. Mark my words. If you don't like it, there's a comment section down there. Tell me why I'm a jerk for saying that, because y'all know it's true. Y'all know it's true that's what's coming down the pipes with that." But the other thing, and this is something that I found interesting, and listening to a couple of other reviews of The Mandalorian as well, Baby Yoda, what they were holding him in, it looked like something that they would be using to possibly clone Baby Yoda. I think that is a very interesting idea, that the Empire was trying to clone a Baby Yoda and instead of having a droid army or a clone army from Jango Fett, yeah, then having an army of force sensitive baby Yodas at their disposal. I mean, come on, man, forget about it. If you could turn an army of baby Yodas to the dark side, game over.
Yeah, but John, I mean,
Right.
Baby Yoda's 50 years old. I mean, it do you have 50
Well, but
years?
uh,
They
they talk about Boba Fett. They modified his clone genetics or whatever, so he aged at a normal rate, and all the other clones aged at a faster rate. So I'm sure with enough torture and experimentation, they could speed up these and be like, oh yeah, we're going to kick out 100,000 Yodas next week.
Yeah, I mean that. In theory, that's correct. In theory, that's correct. If you look back on it, there was accelerated aging for the clone army, so that they were adult, they were at full maturity. I just look at it and say to myself, like you say, if you have an army of controllable Yodas at your disposal, forget about it. There's not much that anybody could do with that, with him being so sensitive to the Force. We talked about that last week too. His entire race is sensitive to the Force. The question then becomes: do the midichlorians choose those others, or do they discard them because they're clones?
Mm-hmm.
I
wonder if there's a sense of, because with humanoid type characters, there's only ever, at least since the fall of the Jedi, there's only ever been a couple that they show at a time that are force sensitive. And I wonder if it's related to the population, in a sense of like because Yoda's species is so rare, where they've only shown like 6 or 7 of them, that because there's only maybe like 1 or 2 at a time, they're able to access more force than other species of aliens or something.
That's possible. I just, like you say, it's one of those deals to me of the rules for the Force are kind of still very nebulous in that way, as far as who gets it, who's qualified, etc. You got to look and see, like you say, is it a case that just there aren't many Yodas out there? Is that what it is? Or is it something different where they actually have their race, part of their race is that every one of them are going to be force sensitive, no matter how many of them there are out there. I mean, I don't know, but we know that everyone that's ever been written about is force sensitive, and they've all, to my knowledge, all of them but one maybe has become a Jedi Master. Not all of them have sat on the council, but all of them have attained the rank of Jedi Master, and that's even in the non-canonical stuff, the Star Wars Legends stuff that Disney likes to call it.
Okay.
So, any other interesting theories on what they think that the Empire wanted to do with Baby Yoda, or are we all in agreement that cloning is definitely the way they were going?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd 100% buy into the whole cloning thing. I honestly, I have no idea. I mean, I seen him being scanned, and other than that, that's all I know. So I mean, I guess that's one of the interesting things that we can look at going forward with the next episodes. I mean, because there's 3 episodes, I mean, being one of them being predictable is understandable. I think the first 2 weren't as predictable. I think going forward, as long as Baby Yoda is part of the story, which I believe he will be, you're going to be able to predict the fact that Mandalorian is going to be protecting Baby Yoda from this point forward. It's really now what is it about this Baby Yoda and what's going to happen?
Yeah, definitely. I know that. Yeah, I know that when I watch stuff, I put on subtitles. I don't remember if it was something that was spoken between a couple characters or just something I saw on the screen, but there was a moment where they were talking about extracting something from him too. So I don't know if there's enough information to show that it's necessarily cloning, but it's some kind of sinister thing. And I'm sure we haven't heard the last whatever their plans are either.
Well,
personally, I'm hoping that not just in this season, but what was that, Todd?
Well, I mean that would kind of roll into the midichlorians. I mean, can you suck the midichlorians out of somebody and implant them into somebody else? I mean,
right. So maybe they were trying to use his. They might have been trying to like get his force powers and buff up something else or someone else or whatever. I don't know, but I'm hoping that the Mando gets a chance to have this foundling be kind of the new apprentice for the Mandalorian religion at some point too. I think that could be kind of cool. A little bounty hunter Yoda running around.
Well, see, and actually, I did a little bit of extra research on the Mandalorians myself. It does turn out that they are a race of people that are human, basically superhuman. But the planet of Mandalore, where they're from, was basic. It was tribal warfare for a long time. They adapted and started to colonize other and take over other outer rim planets. When that happened, the old Republic, when the Jedi were first starting up and becoming more of a force themselves, the Mandalorians and the Jedi butted heads. So not only were the Jedis having to deal with Sith, they were also having to deal with Mandalorians. Well, there then became a fracture between the 2 sets of Mandalorians, one that wanted to be more political and more peaceful, and one that wanted to continue to be very warlike. The ones who wanted to be warlike actually were sent away, and that's why they all became mercenaries and bounty hunters. Then, because the Jedi's, and this is a little skewed probably, but the way it's told is the Jedi's still kind of saw the Mandalorians as enemies. Their world became the center for several conflicts, and all of the peaceful Mandalorians were basically wiped out. So that's why, they're talking about being foundlings and stuff like that, and having it feels like they're having to revive a culture. That's my understanding of what is actually going on there. They're trying to revive a culture and trying to stay hidden long enough that they can get their numbers back up so that they can, maybe have a home world again or something like that.
Okay.
All right. Well, I think we've pretty much covered this topic. We've pretty much covered every topic. Let's get some final thoughts. I mean, I'll start out with Taylor. Taylor, you got any final thoughts on what we talked about?
I know that I had other things I wanted to talk about this new episode, and I'm just totally blanking, and that always happens to me. I come up with these are the things that, but so right now it's all not there. But if I think of something, I'll like send you a message or whatever and be like, hey, make sure to talk about this.
Well, there's always next week. I mean, The Mandalorian's going to have 12 episodes, so we can always talk about it next week as well.
It does have the feeling that we're going to have our mandatory 15 minutes of Mandalorian. That feels like that's going to be a continuing theme. because let's be real here, it has been super popular, and just because I didn't like one of the 3 episodes doesn't mean that I'm not tuning in next week. So don't anybody take that away from our discussion here. I'm definitely tuning in to Mandalorian next week. And yeah, we'll definitely have our 15 minutes. Worst case, you can help us start the conversation in the comments section on YouTube if you have something that you think of later, and we can bring it up in next week's episode.
Well, yeah, so thanks for having me on again, guys.
No problem.
No problem, man.
Thanks for joining us.
All right,
Cool talk.
We will wrap this one up. My final thoughts on The Mandalorian is thank you, Jon Favreau. You deserve to be the president of Lucasfilms. I love you. Please, if anybody from Disney is watching this, fire Kathleen Kennedy. My Kathleen Kennedy hate just doesn't go away. I'm sorry, but that is it. That's all I have to say. Peace out, everybody.
Be good or be good at it.
All right, take care.
We good?